What's up?
Now just recording a podcast. What's up with you?
Oh, not too much. You know what, though?
What?
You need a counselor.
Thanks, so do you.
I do need a counselor. You're right. Hey, Chrissa. Hey, listeners. Hey, Chrissa.
Hello.
Hello. This is You Need a Counselor. I'm Julie Johnson. I'm the president and founder of Heart and Solutions and the author at Stories from the Heart, children's stories about counseling, mindfulness, breathing techniques, everything. Who are you?
Hi, I'm Chrissa. I am the vice president at Heart and Solutions. So I am in charge of the in-home behavioral health department where we work with children on different behavioral skills. And this is You Need a Counselor. We are a podcast that is designed for people curious about counseling, but who have barriers keeping them from experiencing the benefits of counseling. Our mission is to share stories about counseling, good, bad, and indifferent, and spread the message that everyone can benefit from mental health and behavioral health counseling services.
Those barriers, we talk a lot about those barriers, don't we?
Our guests and their barriers, so it's not just us saying it, people really do have these barriers.
That's true. We don't even always ask them about their barriers. Yeah. They just tell us. It's awesome. And then they tell us how they overcame some of them and the ones that they're still working through. I've learned a lot from our guests.
Yeah, and that they talk about how different counselors didn't work for them and how they were able to find new counselors or even took a break from counseling and came back to it later in life. So definitely can relate to a lot of our listeners, I'm sure.
So we post on Sunday nights at 5:00 p.m. Central Time, which I haven't been saying Central Time, but I should because...
Yeah, listeners could be everywhere.
That's right. Yeah, so everybody, East Coast, West Coast, we're in Central Time. We're in Iowa in the middle of the country. And we post at 5 p.m. Central Time on Sunday nights. So save up your laundry, batch up that task for the week. Don't put away laundry during the week. Nobody wants to do that. Put it away on Sunday nights and put us on. We'll keep you company then. And then that'll hopefully give you some inspiration, motivation to get on the phone with a counselor on Monday morning or anytime during that next week, or to call your counselor if you haven't seen your counselor. We are bringing to you today a really fun episode. I'm excited about it, and I'm nervous about it.
Yeah, same. It'll be interesting. We'll see how it goes.
So Chrissa and I do a lot of role plays because a big part of Chrissa and I just like to play. So we like to have fun and do kind of imagination type creative things. And part of our interview process is that we role play counseling situations with the people that we're interviewing. And so today we're going to have a little bit of a role reversal because usually when we role play, I play the teenager.
I'm the mom.
Chrissa plays my mom.
I guess that's kind of similar still for me.
Yeah, you're still kind of mom today. That's just Chrissa's thing. She's the mom in the role. I'm going to be the counselor doing the assessment. So Chrissa is going to pretend to be a parent, guardian figure for a child client. And we're going to try to do this assessment. Now, if you are listening to this, we are going to be showing the informed consent paperwork on the screen. So you won't be able to see that, but I am still going to explain and go through that informed consent paperwork with Chrissa, just the same way that I would in a face-to-face session. We'll also put a link to that informed consent and what the releases look like into the show notes so that if you do want to see what that looks like in advance, you can go ahead and do that. Now, this is not what an assessment looks like or sounds like for every counselor. This is just what it sounds like when I do it. And Chrissa's never seen me do this before. So.
No. I don't even know all the questions, so it'll be interesting.
We've been doing this for 8 years together, and we've never been in an assessment together.
It's just weird.
It's weird. There's a first time for everything, I guess.
Yeah.
We're not
you
out
guys
of
get
first.
to hear it today.
We get to do it publicly. The first thing I'm going to do, so Chrissa is going to pretend to be the parental figure for this child, and the child is going to be the client. So we're going to pretend that this child is coming in for counseling, either therapeutic counseling in the office or in-home behavioral health counseling to work through some different behaviors and some different family situations at home. Also, we do offer these assessments over telehealth, so over video and over the phone. However, I'm going to go over this paperwork as though this is a face-to-face session. Now, if we were doing this actually via telehealth, then there are some additional documents that have to do with telehealth and making sure that parent or parental figure guardian understands the different risks and benefits of telehealth as well. But for the purposes of this episode, to try to keep it as simple as possible, I'm going to just go ahead and share as though we're doing this face-to-face. All right, here we go. Hello, I'm Julie.
Hi, I'm Evil.
Evil, how are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Good. Oh, I'm so glad you said your name for me, because when I read it, I thought it might be evil or Evil, and I couldn't.
No, that's people get it wrong a lot. It's Evil.
Evil. Okay, yeah. That sounds good. Okay, so and your last name is stepmom, right?
Yes. Yep.
Okay. Okay. So, Evil, we are here to talk about your stepdaughter, right, Cindy?
Yes. Yep. Cindy. Yep. Cinderella.
Okay. Cinderella. Okay, perfect. How old are you, Cindy? We're gonna pretend she's in here. How old are you, Cindy? I'm 10. Oh, good. Okay. So the first thing, so I just want to tell you about this assessment, what this first appointment is. These first appointments are a lot of questions and are going to be like, this one is going to be probably one of the most boring sessions that you're going to have. So I get to come every 6 months and talk to you and ask you a bunch of questions. So when you see me, I'm sorry, it's a lot of the boring paperwork question stuff. But once your counselor comes to see you every week, she's going to do a lot more fun stuff, playing games, doing craft activities.
She doesn't need that fun stuff.
Okay, she doesn't like games.
No.
Okay. Okay, so today is going to be a lot of just questions and answers and kind of just getting to know you guys and getting to know the goals that you're wanting to set for your family.
Okay.
Wonderful. And I know we had talked before the session about, I had asked if you had guardianship for Cindy, and since you are stepmom, and you let me know that you would bring that paperwork. Do you have that for me, Evie?
I do. Yes, I do have that.
Perfect. Thank you so much. That is wonderful. I will go ahead and upload that as well so we have it. I'm going to give you this informed consent. And basically what this is just kind of the agreement between you and your family and our agency, and so that we can give you as much information about what counseling is as possible. I'm going to give you a copy for you to keep. This one you can take home. And then I'm also going to just kind of go through, hit the main points, but if at any time you have any questions about anything that I talk about, or if you go home and read it later and have questions about anything that we talked about, please feel free to let me know, okay?
Okay.
Okay, sounds good. So the first part just talks about the fact that we are accountable to HIPAA, the Health Insurance Portability and Accountability Act. So you're going to hear a lot about confidentiality and privacy, things like that, in this informed consent.
Okay.
So this is an agreement between you and the agency about kind of what you can expect from counseling. The first part here where the header is psychological and behavioral services, this talks about our two services called therapy and BHIS, B-H-I-S. Sometimes that sounds like BS. It's not. It's BHIS, B-H-I-S, okay? And so if we say BHIS, or if you hear the word BHIS, we're talking about B-H-I-S, which stands for Behavioral Health Intervention Counseling. That's that counselor that's going to come to your house and work with you and work with Cindy and do some family stuff at home, okay? And then Cindy's therapist will be the one that she will meet with in the office weekly, okay? And so this part just really talks about what therapy and counseling is. So there's always going to be risks associated with counseling because we're talking about emotions and we're talking about processes. And so there are a lot of benefits to the counseling process or to behavioral health counseling work, but there are some things that can happen where you might start to feel a little bit uncomfortable sometimes. So we just like to normalize that sometimes things feel like they're getting worse before they start to feel better. You may even see an increase in certain behaviors or certain challenges as we're working through those, because it's not always comfortable for every child or every family member to start talking about certain processes or start talking about certain behaviors or thoughts that they might be having or feelings, right? And so we always want to let you know that that there are a few risks to that. Like there can be some sadness, some guilt that can come out, some anxiety feelings, some frustration that can come out in session, and that is normal and that is totally okay to come out in counseling, okay? We also like to talk about the fact that counseling, either with your behavioral health counselor or with your therapist, is a two-way relationship. It's a working relationship between you guys and the counselor. Nobody likes to be told what to do. And so we want to make sure that you guys are active participants in that counseling process, okay? Which is why we're bringing you in for the assessment. We're going to do that goal setting together as well, okay? So the first 2 to 4 sessions, I always like to normalize this because, of course, the first session is with me, and it's like the most boring one. And so this is just the assessment. This can be every 6 months when you're doing behavioral health intervention counseling. But once your counselor comes to the house, the first 2 to 4 sessions, or even sometimes longer, even sometimes like a month and a half, 2 months, is really just about getting a sense of who you guys are as a family, getting a sense of the needs of like what Cindy's needing and wanting, what you're needing and wanting, what Cindy's siblings are needing and wanting, and just how everybody works together and functions as a family. So in those first couple of sessions, you may just see that we're just having fun in the session, okay? And I want to make sure that you know that if you start counseling and your counselor comes and does like a getting to know you activity, right? Or does like a would you rather type game or like a Jenga game or something like that. I don't want you to think that that counselor is just slacking off on their job, okay? They are building a relationship with you and with Cindy so that they can get to know how to best serve you guys, okay? So we always want to make sure that people are aware of that kind of upfront. So therapy appointments are usually 54, 60 minutes, sometimes 45 minutes, depending on the child's age. Those are usually weekly. Sometimes they can be bi-weekly, just depending on what you guys are needing. And then behavioral health intervention services are every week. You're usually prescribed about 2 hours per week. So it would be 1 hour of individual for Cindy, and then 1 hour of family time with you and Cindy. And I know like Cindy has some siblings, doesn't she?
Yep, she has 2 stepsisters.
Okay, so they're more than welcome to join the sessions at your discretion, okay? That's up to your family. So, but we're more than welcoming to have them in the session. So we do ask that you do try to stay consistent with, especially those BHIS appointments, because once I'm done with today's assessment, I'm going to send this on to the insurance company. The insurance company is going to say back to me, okay, we're going to approve Cindy for 1 hour of individual sessions per week and 1 hour of family sessions per week. And if we tell the insurance company, hey, this is going to be beneficial for Cindy to have this time, they expect that we would do that consistently, okay, week by week. Now, we know that things come up. We know that tires go flat. We know that kids get sick. We know that dogs get sick. Things happen. We do have a late cancel and no-show policy where we know that you may have to cancel things sometimes, but we do ask for 24 hours notice at least if you have to cancel or reschedule a session. We know that that doesn't always happen, like you're on the way to the session and your tire goes flat. And so as long as we don't have more than 3 either cancels the day of or no-show appointments, as long as we don't have more than 3 of those in 3 months, then there's no issue. We just continue scheduling as usual. If we do have more than 3 either no-show appointments or late cancel appointments within 3 months, then we would have to go to what's called standby status. And then in that situation, your therapist or the BHIS counselor would only be able to schedule with you on the day of the appointment. Okay, so we wouldn't be able to schedule out. That's called standby status. Okay, but as long as you're giving us as much notice as you can, we shouldn't have to go to that. Any questions so far?
Nope.
Okay, and most of the counselors, you can just go ahead and text your counselor directly if you need to reschedule or cancel an appointment. Okay. All right, so the next part talks about additional professional fees. So these are not fees that you're guaranteed to have charged to you, but if these situations come up, we think it's fair to let you know what those fees are in advance. So we do have a $35 letter writing fee. If you ask us to write a letter on your behalf outside of session, then we would ask that you would pay that $35 letter writing fee prior to us sending that letter over. And sometimes this is like for attorneys or for landlords or just for different things, or like for benefits recommendations, stuff like that. So if you do ask for a letter from us to be written outside of the session, it is that $35 letter writing fee. Now, if you ask us for a letter and we can do that during the session and incorporate, like do it with you and make sure that you're a part of that, then there isn't a fee for that, okay? There is a return check fee of $25. So if you have a co-payment or something like that, and then you write a check and that check doesn't clear the bank, then there is a $25 non-sufficient fund fee that is added to that balance. If we're subpoenaed to court by your attorney, and I always like to say, make sure that it's clear that it's by your attorney. So if your attorney subpoenas us to court, either for deposition or to testify, then there is a $200 per hour fee that we would charge to your attorney. And that does include like time in court, preparation for court, if we need to talk to your attorney on the phone to prepare, then also travel time to court if subpoenaed, okay? And with that, if you ever do anticipate that we may be involved in a court case, please let us know with as much notice as possible, okay?
Yep.
Okay. So the next part talks about insurance, and what kind of insurance does Cindy have?
She has Medicaid.
Oh, okay. Okay, perfect. So Medicaid does cover BHIS as well as therapy as long as she's got active Medicaid. So we are an in-network provider for Iowa Medicaid. Does she have Iowa Total Care or does she have AmeriGroup?
I think she has AmeriGroup.
Okay, perfect. Yeah. So we are a network for AmeriGroup. We are able to bill them for the sessions, but I always want to make sure that you know that if for some reason her insurance coverage ever lapses or becomes inactive, then please let us know as soon as you possibly can, because we don't want you to end up with getting a bill for those sessions, okay, if her insurance is inactive. So unfortunately, we can't always know when insurance is inactive right away, and so we just ask that you would make sure to please know when her insurance is active. If you know that it is going to be inactive or becomes inactive, please let us know that right away so that we don't do sessions that you're going to get a bill for, okay?
Yeah.
And typically if she's got active Medicaid, then typically she won't get a bill, but if she does get one, then it'll be mailed to your house every month, okay? So you never have to send money with her to her therapy appointment or anything.
Okay, good.
Okay, this next part on the bottom here just talks about the collection agency that we utilize. And so if for some reason, now again, she's got Iowa Medicaid, so she may not get a bill, and usually that service is covered. But if she were to go inactive or something, then if you guys had that bill and that bill got to a certain point, then we would have to send that bill to collections. Okay, so I always want to make sure people know that up front, because it's not, you know, pleasant if you don't know that that's going to happen. We should be totally fine. If you do get a bill from us, please call the billing department as soon as possible so you can get that worked out with them. Also, attorney costs and collection costs would then also be rolled into that collection amount, okay? We also use text messages, voice calls. I know, like, we talked on the phone a couple times before the assessment. We also use email services that are encrypted, and there are sometimes going to be voicemails. And I know you said on the phone that I could leave a voicemail.
Yeah.
Machine on your cell phone. So we just want to make sure that you understand that, like, those are not completely confidential ways of communication. They're as confidential as we can make them, but you know, if somebody else picks up your phone, for example, and looks at a text message that I sent about Cindy's appointment, you know, we can't be responsible for that.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yep.
Okay, perfect. This part on the bottom talks about alternative funding sources. So there's private pay, which wouldn't qualify here. And then there is a consent for treatment, a consent for transport in this consent for treatment. That's a tongue twister. And so we do ask that it just be in here, but we're only going to use this if there's an emergency. Okay, so every provider here has a valid driver's license and is only going to transport Cindy in the case of an emergency, or if that's scheduled in advance with you. Okay. Contacting your provider, I know we talked about text messages are usually the easiest, but you could also contact them by phone. We just always like to let people know that we're not a crisis service. So we can send text messages or talk on the phone about, like, scheduling things. If you need to reschedule something or if you want to confirm your appointment, we can do that. But if it is a crisis situation, just know that we don't always answer our phones after a certain point in the day. If it is a crisis, please call 911 or go to your local ER, okay? Because we may not be able to get in touch with you or get that phone call or text right away.
Okay.
Any questions on anything so far?
Nope.
Okay.
So.
It's a lot of information.
Yes, very long.
Yes. Okay, so the next part just talks about confidentiality, and really that just means that anything that's said in the session, we're not going to disclose to anybody else. So if a family member calls and asks us about Cindy's services, or the school calls and asks us, we're not going to tell them anything unless you have given us your written permission. We also, it is our policy that if we see you out in public, like if I see you at Casey's, I'm not going to act like I know you, okay? I'm gonna walk right by you and pretend like I don't know you. And so that's not to be rude, that's just for your privacy, okay? Now, if Cindy comes up and says hi to me, that's totally fine, okay? I will say hi to her. There are some limits to confidentiality. So the first is that if there's an emergency situation, if I'm at the house and there is a medical emergency, I'm going to call 911. That's a limit to confidentiality. Debt collections we talked about, so we do use a collection agency for that. Consultation with our attorney. So again, if we're subpoenaed or something like that, we may consult with our attorney. We are all child and dependent adult abuse mandatory reporters. So if we have reason to suspect that a child or a dependent adult is being abused, then we would have to report them.
Okay.
Court proceedings, so we talked about subpoenas, but if we get a subpoena from somebody who's not you or your attorney representing you, and you don't want us to send that information, then we will likely file a subpoena or file a motion to try to squash that subpoena. However, if a judge tells us that we have to send that information to them, we're gonna have to send that information to them, okay? Threats to health or safety. So if anybody in the session tells us that they are planning to harm themselves or they're planning to harm somebody else, then we would have to go ahead and break confidentiality and report that, okay, to make sure that everybody in the session is safe. We also ask that, you know, we do have these individual sessions with Cindy, and then we have the family session. But if something is disclosed in the individual session that is threatening to safety, then we will try to have Cindy collaboratively talk with you about what that situation is so that we can keep her safe. You will know if something is dangerous that's happening. Okay, the next part is insurance. So of course your insurance company, AmeriGroup, is going to know that you guys have services with us. Supervision. So all of our BHIS counselors have a licensed therapist who does clinical supervision with them each month, or I'm sorry, every quarter. And so they may discuss like Cindy's goals. They might discuss different interventions that they're doing with Cindy. And then they also have an administrative supervisor within the agency as well. So they might consult there. Parents and minors we talked about. So if there's a risky type of behavior or a threat to safety, we're going to go ahead and inform you right away, get you involved. We are going to ask today for a release of information to her primary care doctor and to her school. And then communication methods. So we use all different cell phone services. And so we just want to make sure that you guys understand that Verizon, AT&T, T-Mobile, Google Voice, that if we utilize those for our text messages or phone communication, or if you use any of those, that we can't guarantee confidentiality on those lines. Okay, so we really just ask that you only use those for scheduling purposes. Okay, the next part is professional records. So we use a online service called Valent to gather the information and to write case notes for each session. So if there's an employee of Valent, they will know that you are a client here. This next part talks about your rights as a client. So you have the right to considerate, safe, and respectful care without discrimination of race, ethnicity, color, gender, sexual orientation, age, religion, national origin, or source of payment. You always have the right to ask questions about the multiple things I've talked about today and anything else that happens in counseling. We also like to let you know that all of our therapists are bound by code of ethics, so either the National Association of Social Workers, which is listed there, or the American Counseling Association. So if you ever have a concern about ethics, just know that they need to follow those boundaries. The right to request restrictions. This just means that even if you sign a release to the school, for example, if there are certain things that you don't want us to share with the school, then we will honor that and respect that. The right to receive confidential communication by alternative means and locations. So if you ever say to me, Julie, don't call my cell phone anymore, or don't text me anymore, I want to just schedule by email or call me at work, we will do that as well. You always have a right to a copy of this notice, so you can ask for that electronically or print it out in your session by your counselor. And then there's a part there with contact information on the bottom for complaints and grievances, and also for compliments and suggestions if you've got any of those. So you can always call that 800 number or send us an email there. And this is yours to keep, so you'll always have that information there on the bottom. Do you guys have any questions on anything that we talked about?
Nope, I don't think so.
Okay, again, I know it's a lot of information, but this is yours to keep and take home. So if you do end up with any questions afterwards, just please let us know, okay? It's important to us that you know exactly what you are signing up for. The next thing that we're going to go over is just this release of information. And this just allows us to share information for consistency of care with your primary care doctor and your and Cindy's school. So do those seem okay to do releases of information to them?
Yep, that's fine.
Okay, sounds good. So we're gonna sign those. The first thing that we're gonna do is I'm just gonna ask you guys to fill out this quiz. It's kind of like a BuzzFeed quiz. So I'm gonna go ahead and give this to you guys, and maybe you and Cindy can fill it out together. Okay, so we're gonna pretend that that Evil and Cindy have filled this out together. So Evil, who all lives in your house?
Cindy, me, and my 2 daughters.
And how old are your daughters?
Cindy's 10, and then my daughters are 12 and 13.
Okay, and anybody else that lives in the home with you guys?
Nope, just us.
And any support people, extended family around you guys, grandparents or anything?
No.
Okay, and then what about Cindy's dad?
Her dad died in a hunting accident a couple years ago now.
How old was Cindy when that happened?
She was 7.
How long had you been married with her dad, or how long had you all been living together before that happened?
Maybe like 6 months. It was pretty recent.
I'm so sorry about that. How about school? How are things going at school?
School's fine. No issues there.
And any like major life changes in the past year or so? Any like moves for the family to a new house or anything like that?
No, we've been staying at the castle since her father passed away, so we haven't moved.
And so I see that you marked on the assessment that Cindy very often has difficulty with keeping attention to what needs to be done. Can you tell me more about that?
Yep, so Cindy has a lot of chores around the house, like cleaning, sweeping, doing the laundry, and she gets very distracted when she is doing those chores. A lot of the time she will like to open the windows and let birds fly into the house or play with the mice or the other birds. She sings a lot. So it's hard for her to just stay focused on one task and complete those chores. And they usually take her all day because she can't focus on one thing at a time to get those done.
Okay, gotcha. So, and is that only at home or is that at school also?
I haven't heard it happening at school. I think mostly at home because at home she has her animal friends there, which are distracting for her.
And then how often have you noticed that that is a challenge?
Like every day.
Okay. And how long has that been a challenge for you guys?
Probably since her father passed away.
And then you said that she very often seems to have difficulty like not seeming to listen when being spoken to directly. Can you tell me about that?
Yeah, I think she doesn't do a good job at following directions given to her, or if I'm talking to her and asking her to do something, she will not pay attention or ignore me or continue with whatever she's doing, and it's a lot of arguing, and I have to repeat myself a lot for her to get to do what I'm asking her to do.
So when there's arguing, are you guys like, are voices raised? Like, what does that look like? Is it just like kind of a back and forth of reminding her, or is she raising her voice or anything like that?
I probably do more than she does, and me just mostly repeating myself until she listens, or she'll get sent to timeout.
And you talked about not following through when given directions, and so it just seems like very distracted, right? So
yeah.
Is it that she like doesn't want to do the task, or is it just that she starts doing the task and then the mice come in and they start singing a song? Like what?
I think it's both. I don't think she wants to do it, so I think she starts doing other things too, but I think that also her friends distract her. But I think she doesn't want to be doing the chores either, so she takes her a long time getting those done.
Okay, and then what about, and that kind of goes along with avoiding and disliking starting tasks, right? Is that kind of what you're talking about? Okay.
Yes.
And then easily distracted by noises we talked about.
Yes.
Okay, yeah. When she's not wanting to start a task, does it seem like she has any like worries about the task or like concerns about doing it wrong or anything like that? Or does it seem like it's just a bother to do it?
I mean, she doesn't really tell me why, but I would think more like a bother, like she doesn't want to be doing that.
Okay. Okay, and then you also noted that she has difficulty sitting in her seat when she's supposed to. Is that at home and at school, or is that mostly at home also?
Mostly at home. I think it's, again, just getting her to sit and do what she's asked to do, or she'd rather be dancing around and singing and in her room. So just getting her to sit or not be moving around all the time.
And does she seem bothered by inability to stay still even when she wants to, or is it mostly bothers you?
I think it just bothers me.
Okay, so she doesn't seem, it's not like concerning to her.
No.
Okay. Okay, and then you said talking too much. And blurting out answers. Can you tell me about that?
Yeah, like sometimes I'll be trying to talk to my own daughters and having a conversation, and she'll try and get in our conversation. Like if we're talking about plans for the weekend, she tries to jump in and invite herself along, or or just wants to participate in our conversation, and I have to tell her to mind her own business sometimes.
Okay. Uh, okay. So if the client interrupts, and do you notice that like mainly with you, or is that with other adults as well?
Mainly with me and my daughters.
And then how about difficulty waiting her turn? What does that look like at home?
I think kind of the same thing, just she wants to take over or do something that my daughters are doing and try and get involved, and needs to like finish her chores first before she can do that stuff, and she gets distracted or is too busy like and didn't sleep or clean up her mess, so she doesn't get to do whatever we're doing with my daughters and just tries to always involve herself in their activities.
Okay, okay. Uh, and then you talked about arguing with adults. What does that look like?
I think it's just when I tell her not to interrupt or to mind her own business or to continue cleaning because she can't do whatever because she didn't complete her chores. That's when she gets upset and we'll try and argue.
Name calling or like disrespectful things being said or anything like that when she's arguing?
Yeah, usually just towards my daughters. I think she gets jealous of them, so sometimes she can be just disrespectful towards them.
But not like name calling and not aggressive, or is there aggressive?
Not really aggressive, but just disrespectful.
You talked about deliberately annoying people and blaming other people for mistakes. Can you tell me about that?
Yeah, so sometimes she'll blame my daughters for her mess or that her chores didn't get done, or her little animal friends, like she says that she did clean or did pick up her mess, but really the house is still a mess. And I think just by deliberately annoying people, just not doing what's asked of her and then trying to butt into our conversations or just go along with what her sisters are doing instead of trying to complete her tasks that were given to her first.
Okay. And you mentioned lying to get out of trouble. Can you tell me about that?
I think that goes along with like the blaming her siblings, or like lying and saying like, yeah, I did all my chores, but I can see the floor's still dirty and your laundry's not done, so you have not completed everything that was asked of you.
Okay, and then what about stealing things that have value and deliberately destroying others' property? Can you tell me about that?
Yeah, so just recently there was an incident where we were invited to a party and Cindy wasn't allowed to go because her chores were not done. She stole some of our jewelry and dresses and ruined those and showed up at the party where she was not invited and supposed to be at because she was still supposed to be home doing her chores. So just taking things that are mine or my daughter's without permission. Yeah, that was an example of something that happened recently.
Okay. So she was supposed to stay home because she hadn't done her chores, and then she left the house without permission and without anybody knowing where she was. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. And you said she stole jewelry, so they were items of value.
Yes, she stole my pearls.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. And then what about breaking into someone else's home, car, or business? Can you tell me about that?
Yeah, well, so when she went to the party, she showed up as someone pretending to be someone else at the prince's house. So just she wasn't allowed there, and she came to that event. So it broke in and was under a different identity, so people wouldn't know who she was.
Okay. And then staying out all night without permission and then running away from home overnight. Can you tell me about that?
Kind of same thing. So if she is told she can't do something because of her chores, she will just leave and do it anyway. Her curfew is midnight. She's not always home on time for that curfew. A lot of times when she runs off, she's not. So just staying out and going places where she's not supposed to be going.
Can you tell me about, you had marked often for a couple of these. So you had said that sometimes it seems like Cindy appears to feel lonely or unwanted or unloved. Can you tell me about that?
Well, she says that stuff to me, that she feels like I don't love her, her sisters don't love her, and that we don't want her at the house. So I personally don't know, but those are some things that she says sometimes.
Okay. Has it always been that way?
I think since her father passed away, yeah.
Were they very close?
Yeah, because her mother passed away when she was born. So it's always just been him until I came along.
And then how's your relationship with Cindy?
It's frustrating. I think that she doesn't see me as a parent figure. I think she struggles to do what I ask her to do.
You said that she and your girls will kind of argue as well, and kind of blame each other for certain things.
Yeah.
Is that typical of their relationship, or is that kind of something that also happens?
Yeah, I think she's jealous of them in our relationship. So I think that causes a lot of arguments too.
Okay. And then for school performance, it looks like she's doing pretty well. It looks like average for overall and reading and writing and math. And then it looks like relationship with parents and siblings we talked about, kind of problematic. And then relationship with peers and participation in organized activities, you had said somewhat of a problem. So can you tell me more about that?
Yeah, I mean, I don't really think she has many friends other than her animal friends. She doesn't really do anything else other than be at the home either. So she's not really in any organized activities. So I think she kind of struggles with the friendship part. I think she just bonds better with her little animal friends.
So does she seem to have difficulty making friends with other kids, or does it seem like she's uninterested in making friends?
I think uninterested, but it could be a difficulty too, but I think it's something that she's more interested in her animal friends.
Anything else, any other behaviors or challenges that you are seeing that you kind of, wanted to address in counseling or that we didn't talk about yet? Concerns, goals?
I think that covers it.
And what are some of Cindy's strengths?
She sings well. She can be crafty. Like when she did steal our stuff, she did make a pretty dress out of it. So I think she does a great job at cleaning when she cleans. So artistic, singing, yeah.
Good at cleaning, okay. Good. So she's capable of doing a lot of things really well. It's just difficult for her to stay on track, even when she wants to do the thing.
Yeah, I think so.
Okay. And the staying out all night and stuff, like how long has that been?
It seems to be more recent. That's why I do think it is a jealousy thing. Like if she's not allowed to go somewhere that my daughters and I are going, she'll just sneak out or lie and go and do that also. And then we just have to catch her in the act of doing it. But it seems to be more recently.
So would you say like in the last month or in the last 6 months or year?
Maybe last 6 months.
Okay. Did anything happen around that time? Any changes to the family or any losses of friends or family?
I mean, I think she just wanted to come to that party and we weren't allowing her to go. But I don't know why that party specifically she decided to go out and break the rules.
The next part I'm just going to ask you about, so has Cindy ever had any inpatient treatment, like hospitalization for mental health purposes?
No.
And has Cindy ever had any outpatient counseling?
No. Nope.
So this is her first time meeting with a counselor?
Yes.
Okay. Has Cindy ever reported any attempts to harm herself or harm somebody else, or thoughts of harming herself or harming anybody else?
No.
Any violence history with Cindy?
No, not really.
She seems very nurturing with the animals.
Yeah, she does like the animals more than people, I think.
Okay, yeah, it sounds like she really connects with the animals.
Mm-hmm.
Any medical history concerns that we should be aware of, like major surgeries or chronic conditions that continue on, medications she's taking? For
Nope.
physical ailments? No? Okay. Oh, you noted that she's not taking any psychiatric medications, right?
Nope. Nope.
Okay. Has she ever taken any?
No.
Does she have any allergies we should be aware of?
Not that I know of, no.
So with Cindy's biological mom and dad, were there any history of psychiatric history with any family members or with mom and dad?
Not that I know of. No. Not that was told to me anyway.
Nobody like extended family, grandparents or aunts and uncles or anything?
Nope. Not that I know of.
So we said no suicidal ideation, no self-harm. Okay, and we did discuss confidentiality, we discussed privacy practices, cancellation policies. Do you have any questions about any of that we talked about today?
Nope. Nope.
Okay. So what we want to do is set some goals for counseling. So we can begin counseling. And so I'm going to say that Cindy will begin weekly mental health counseling. And then we want to set 3 goals. So I'll just kind of say what goals I was maybe hearing, and then you tell me if those are kind of matching what you were wanting to kind of address, okay?
Okay.
So the first thing, it sounds like it would be probably helpful to help Cindy with focus and concentration skills. So it sounds like
Yes.
that's really challenging for her, and not necessarily always that she doesn't want to, although sometimes it's because she doesn't want to, but it also seems like it's challenging even when it's stuff that she wants to do. With the singing and everything still gets in the way there. So, so if we improved her ability to practice focus and concentration skills in order to be able to complete her chores without being distracted by singing and dancing.
Yeah, perfect.
And like, what percentage of the time would you say that she's able to do that right now without getting distracted by singing and dancing? Is it like 50%, less, more?
Less for sure.
And 50, okay. What about like 25%, less or more?
Yeah, maybe 25%.
Okay. And so I think it would be great if we could get that to 50% of the time. It's not going to be all of the time, but you know, if we can get that to 50% of the time where she's using her focus and concentration skills, then you know, we're going to see some improvement there and helping her with that frustration too. The next thing, it just sounds like there's some conflict resolution skills that could help between Cindy and her stepsisters, and then also like, it seems like that could also help just her with her making friends and with interacting with her peers too, because it sounds like she's very good with animals and that is a strength with that compassion, but she also may just be having a difficult time connecting with friends her own age.
Yeah, that sounds good.
So I would say like, let's improve. And does that sound like 2 different goals to you? Like, or does that kind of sound like one skill that would kind of help with both of those situations?
I mean, the connecting with other people may be a little different than conflict resolution, but unless her goal is like connecting with both siblings and other people, that could potentially be both.
What about like building healthy relationships with other kids?
Sounds good.
That might help with the relationship with her sisters and then also with friends at school. So she'll improve her ability to build healthy relationships with peers her own age at school and with sisters at home. Similar in age, right? There's not a huge gap, and so they would still kind of be considered peers. They're in that same age group. So that in order to improve her conflict resolution skills with sisters at home and to build friendships at school, right? And then what percentage of the time would you say that she's using those conflict resolution skills with her sisters at home?
Maybe like 25% again.
So does 50% of the time seem doable?
Yeah.
Okay. Then building friendships at school, how often or what percentage of the time? So if she's got an
Like
opportunity.
0.
Okay. Okay. So does she have any friends at school or like acquaintances or people that she says hi to?
Maybe not friends that she talks to me about or that she spends time with outside of school at all. So not that I know of.
Okay. Well, friendships at school. Yeah. So I'm gonna kind of set that as a third one. And I'm gonna say build friendships at school. So we're still working on that skill of building healthy relationships. But the outcome of this one is we're wanting to build friendships at school from 0 friends to, do we want to set a goal of maybe making one friend or one acquaintance even that she says hi to every day and maybe talks to a little bit?
Yeah, that sounds good.
And then I also heard just frustration with like listening to directives. And so maybe we just want to add one about following directives without arguing.
Yeah, that's a good one.
Okay. How often would you say that she's doing that now? What percentage of the time? Like you tell her to do something, what's the likelihood she's going to do it without arguing?
I mean, Jill, I think she starts. It's just that she gets distracted and then that's an argument. So maybe 25 to 30% of the time again.
50% seem like a reachable goal. And that would be an improvement, right? Get to about half the time. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Do these goals seem fair? And is there anything else that is concerning to you that you think is more pressing than these goals that we've set?
No, I think that's good for now.
Okay. And no housing stressors.
Nope.
No, you guys are at the castle and and housing is secure. Okay. Any like financial or job stressors happening at home?
Nope, I don't work.
Okay. Okay. And then other than, so I know you talked about dad passing away, any other significant traumas, car accidents, major surgeries, any kind of abuse that's been reported?
I think, nope, just about her dad passing away.
Okay. All right. Do you have any questions for me before we wrap up the assessment?
Nope, I don't think so.
Okay, sounds good. Well, I hope that this was helpful in kind of setting some goals, and your counselor will get in touch with you to go ahead and get scheduled as soon as. My next step is I'm going to write this all out, make it look pretty. I'm going to send it to the insurance company, and then hopefully they will approve those weekly sessions going forward. And then once that's approved, then your counselor will reach out to you to get scheduled.
Okay, perfect.
All right, thank you.
Yep,
Bye.
thank you. Bye.
So we're back.
It was hard not to laugh during some of that.
Oh my gosh. It is funny, like doing it from the evil stepmother's point of view.
Yeah. Yeah, I feel like there's a lot that I complained about that probably, I mean, they're silly. Like, oh, she's just jealous of her sisters. She didn't get to go to the party because her house was a mess still.
You see me type like, stepmom reports that she believes that Kenny is jealous of stepsisters.
Yeah.
What I like about that is like perception is everything. And so like, you know, like we go in and we tell the situation as we see it. And so I love that story. Have you seen that? Have you read that one of like the true story of the 3 little pigs? And it's from the wolf's point of view.
Yeah.
That is awesome because like even the wolf's point of view in that 3 little pigs story is a valid point of view. We're just so used to hearing it from the pig's point of view of like this horrible wolf and everything, right? So, so as counselors, we always do take that into consideration as well, right? So the way that we've heard this story, Cinderella story, right? Evil stepmother is evil and everything, right? She might be, she might not be. We don't really know. So it was cool to hear it from that perspective.
Yeah.
As well.
Yeah, it was interesting.
Yeah, I liked the curfew part. I was like, oh my gosh, that's funny.
Yeah. And she just playing with her little animal friends.
Yes, I know. And like, as a counselor, you know, it's like, oh, that is like, she's showing nurturing, like towards those animals, even though the stepmom is like,
No,
you know, this is weird.
Yeah.
She's singing with mice all the time. So it's just funny because like I just kept picturing the movie in my head of like how this stepmom is watching Cinderella like dancing around with a broom and like while she's supposed to be doing her chores.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, so fun. So yeah, so that's what an assessment looks like, and I didn't really time it. I know it's like 2:19 right now, but I think we started because we did the intro, so we started a little bit after. So usually that's about an hour, and I think that's about what we ended up doing. So yeah, that's what an assessment looks like. If you do one with me, that's what one looks like. Again, like it can be different for every counselor. So, you know, you might go in and they might not be as structured in terms of like behaviors and things like that. They may go more into detail, or they may get a different assessment, right? So if I was actually working with this Cindy and doing that assessment, I might even give her a different assessment to maybe find out more about like mood that she might be having, and like maybe some depressive symptoms that she might be having, because she did mark that she feels unwanted, unloved, that she has feelings of worthlessness, right? And so when a child expresses those things, we want to take those into consideration. We want to hear that, and we want to explore that as we're making our treatment goals. So for the sake of the podcast, I just wanted to try to keep it as simple as possible and just do that main assessment that we do. But if this was a real life situation, I probably also would have given Cindy one specifically. So that way I can also get Cindy's point of view, because you know, stepmom is going to give me her point of view, but Cindy might tell me a little bit more about like how she's feeling as well, as opposed to the behavioral stuff that I was hearing about. That's what an assessment potentially can look like. So the major things to keep in mind are just that like it can be really, really boring at the beginning. Like I thought Chrissa was going to fall asleep.
It's a lot of info.
And just know that like your counselor has to say that stuff to you. Like they're not doing that to be annoying, and they're not doing that to like bore you to death. They have to say that stuff to you so that you go into this prepared, you know, for what to expect, and so that you know what's going to happen. So it is really important, but it is really boring sometimes also getting paperwork and things signed. So just being aware that that's a possibility. And then also that, you know, these are kind of specific questions to be asking a stranger too, right? Or to be answering to a like some stranger you've never talked to before about your child or about yourself. You know, we're going to do another episode where Chrissa, we're going to have adult Cinderella doing an assessment about some anxiety she's having about planning this palace wedding and becoming royalty. And that's a major life change. She needs a little extra support. And so we are going to see an adult assessment with that too. But our main goal with this podcast episode is just to kind of normalize that, like, that is the first session. So if you go into that first session and you're like, wow, this person's really nosy and like isn't really asking me a ton of like follow-up questions, doesn't seem to, like, it's because that is kind of part of that assessment a lot of the time. And there is that paperwork and it is boring. Don't let that make you give up on counseling in general, okay? Because that second session is likely to be really different than that first session. So so thank you guys for joining us today on this podcast. This was really fun.
Yeah, it was fun.
I really liked it. It was really fun, and hopefully you guys didn't like turn off the podcast during the informed consent, because I don't know if I would blame you. Maybe just like skip ahead if you're not
it gets
super.
better.
It gets better. Just that. Yeah, so until then, I'm Julie Johnson, and we are coming to you from Heart and Solutions, or strength-based counseling agency here in Iowa. And you can always feel free to reach out to us on our Facebook page at You Need a Counselor podcast. So if you're listening to this and you're like, why did you ask for that? Or why did you say that? Or like, where did you get those goals from? Like, how did you just come up with those? You can feel free to ask us those, or even if you just want to share with us, like, okay, I'm about to call my counselor, I'm about to call a counselor, and we will support you through that as well. We're going to cheer you on as you do that. So please reach out to us there. If you've got questions, you can ask them there anonymously. We will answer them on the podcast, but we can also answer questions through the chat there as well.
And like Julie mentioned also, we do post every Sunday at 5. So make sure that you save up your laundry or your chores for Sunday night, so you can do that while you listen to us Sunday at 5 Central, now that we're starting to remind you guys it is Central Time. Or Monday mornings as you're getting ready for the work week or the school week or whatever it is that you're doing, to motivate you to help call your counselor that week, or to call a counselor if you don't have one yet. So I'm Chrissa Brown.
And I'm Julie Johnson, and I need a counselor.
And so do you.
Bye.
Bye, everyone.